Welcome to prayer at sunrise. I sense the Lord calling you away from the noise right now, into a quiet pasture where your mind can finally stop racing. This morning is an invitation to let the shepherd lead you beside still waters, not the chaotic rivers of worry, noise, and endless notifications. Right where you are, take a slow, deep breath and allow your soul to settle into the rhythm of his peace, for he is already here. The hurry in your spirit is not from him. Let it fall away, like leaves floating gently to the ground. David wrote in Psalm 23, "He makes me lie down in green pastures, he leads me beside quiet waters." Notice that the shepherd sometimes has to make us lie down, because our humanity fights rest. But today you don't have to resist. Picture the good shepherd looking at you with eyes full of kindness, knowing exactly how tired you have been and simply whispering, "Rest, beloved, I am watching over you." I speak restoration over the hidden parts of your heart that feel dry and brittle. Not just physical fatigue, but the deep soul weariness that comes from carrying burdens you were never meant to carry alone. As we meditate on this psalm, let the living water of his Spirit soak into the parched ground of your faith. This is not just a poetic metaphor. It's a supernatural transaction happening right now as you fix your eyes on him. He is restoring your soul, refreshing your hope, and repairing the places where the enemy tried to steal your peace. Don't rush this moment. Let the stillness do its healing work. Feel the safety of his rod and staff, not as tools of punishment, but as instruments of protection that guard your mind from fear. The shepherd is preparing a table of peace right in the presence of whatever has been troubling you this week. Sip slowly from this well of tranquility and know that his goodness and mercy are actively pursuing you. Right now, in this very breath, thank you for starting your morning here with the heart of the Father. If this prayer is touching your spirit, I invite you to partner with this ministry by pressing that like button and subscribing to the channel so you never miss our daily prayer at sunrise. Before the video continues, pause and write Amen in the comments. And I would be honored if you would tell me the one thing you are believing God to do in your life today. Let faith fill the atmosphere as we remain in this sacred stillness together. The shepherd makes us rest, even when we resist it. Let that truth settle over your soul like a gentle morning mist. I want you to pause right now and consider the weight of those words, because they carry a revelation that could change the entire trajectory of your day, and perhaps even your life. We live in a world that celebrates the grind, the hustle, the endless push toward more. From the moment your eyes open in the morning, there are demands pulling at you, expectations pressing down on your shoulders, and a relentless inner voice telling you that you must keep moving, keep striving, keep achieving, or somehow you will fall behind, you will miss out, you will not be enough. But the shepherd operates on an entirely different economy, an entirely different rhythm, one that flows from the heart of eternity and not from the frantic pulse of a broken world. When David penned those immortal words under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, he did not write that the shepherd politely suggested he lie down, nor did he write that the shepherd gently invited him to consider resting if it fit into his busy schedule. No. The word is clear and deliberate and strong. He makes me lie down. There is a divine insistence in this phrase, a holy determination on the part of the shepherd that will not take no for an answer when it comes to the well-being of his sheep. Think about the nature of sheep for a moment, because the metaphor is deeply intentional and profoundly instructive. Sheep are anxious creatures by nature. They are easily frightened, easily scattered, and remarkably stubborn when it comes to their own needs. A sheep will literally stand there exhausted, hungry, and thirsty, refusing to lie down because something in its environment has triggered its fear response. Perhaps there is tension in the flock. Perhaps there is the distant scent of a predator. Perhaps there is simply too much noise and commotion for its nervous system to settle. The sheep will remain standing, sometimes for days, pushing itself beyond the limits of its own strength, depleting its reserves, all because it cannot quiet the internal alarm that tells it to stay alert, stay vigilant, stay ready. Sound familiar, beloved? How many of us have lain in our beds at night with our bodies screaming for rest while our minds raced through tomorrow's anxieties, next week's deadlines, next month's uncertainties? How many of us have walked through our days with shoulders tight and jaws clenched, physically present but spiritually and emotionally 1,000 miles away, unable to settle into the present moment because we are always bracing for the next crisis? The shepherd knows this about us. He knows the intricate workings of our fearful hearts better than we know them ourselves, and in his mercy, he does not leave us to our own devices. He intervenes. He makes us lie down. This making is not the harsh compulsion of a taskmaster, nor the angry demand of a tyrant. It is the firm, loving, unyielding care of a shepherd who sees what we cannot see in our state of exhaustion and fear. Picture the good shepherd walking through the flock, noticing the one sheep that is trembling on its feet, dark circles under its eyes, wool matted with the sweat of prolonged stress. Does he walk past and simply hope the sheep figures it out on its own? Does he offer a casual suggestion from a distance and then move on to more important matters? Never. He stops. He kneels down. He places his gentle but powerful hands upon that weary sheep, and with a voice that carries both authority and infinite tenderness, he speaks peace over the racing heart and the troubled mind. He may use the firm pressure of his staff to guide the sheep down, not to harm, but to communicate safety in a language the sheep's frightened body can finally understand. He may sit right there in the grass beside the trembling creature, his presence a living barrier against every perceived threat, until the sheep finally exhales and surrenders to the rest it has been fighting against for far too long. This is the heart of your shepherd toward you this morning. He is not angry at your resistance. He is not disappointed in your struggle to let go. He understands the deep roots of your anxiety, and he is committed to your restoration with a patience that never runs out and a love that never gives up. I want you to consider that your inability to rest might actually be rooted in something much deeper than a busy schedule. At the core of our resistance to lying down is often a hidden belief that everything depends on us. We carry an unconscious weight that says if we stop, the whole world stops. If we pause, things will fall apart. If we let our guard down for even a moment, disaster will strike and it will be our fault, because we were not diligent enough, not watchful enough, not responsible enough. This is a burden that was never meant for human shoulders to carry, and yet so many of us have been carrying it for so long that we no longer even recognize it as a burden. It has become like a second skin, a familiar ache in our bones that we have mistaken for normalcy. The shepherd wants to peel that false responsibility away from you. He wants to remind you in the deepest places of your heart that he is God and you are not. The universe does not rest on your shoulders. The safety of your family does not ultimately depend on your ceaseless vigilance. The outcome of your life is not held together by the white-knuckled grip of your own efforts. There is a shepherd, and he neither slumbers nor sleeps. He watches over you with an attention so complete, so perfect, that you are free to close your eyes. You are free to breathe. You are free to let go. When the shepherd makes you lie down, he is not taking something from you. He is giving something back to you that the world has stolen. He is restoring your humanity. You were not created to be a machine that runs without ceasing. You were not designed to function on depleted energy and fractured attention. You were made in the image of God, and woven into that image is the sacred rhythm of work and rest, of output and intake, of pouring out and being filled again. From the very beginning, in the creation account, God himself modeled this rhythm for us. He spoke the universe into existence with effortless power, and yet he chose to rest on the seventh day, not because he was tired, but because he was establishing a pattern for his beloved creation to follow. Rest is not a sign of weakness. Rest is an act of trust. Rest is a declaration of faith that says, I believe God is still working even when I am sleeping. I believe his provision does not depend on my constant striving. I believe he is the one who builds the house, guards the city, and prepares the table, and I am simply the beloved guest, invited to sit and receive. I speak this over you right now, in the name of Jesus. that the grip of performance anxiety would be broken off your life, that the lie which tells you your worth is measured by your productivity would be silenced, that the fear which keeps you standing on trembling legs would be replaced by the perfect love of the shepherd that casts out all fear. Can you feel him near you right now? Can you sense his presence in this moment, not as a distant theological concept, but as a living reality closer than your very breath? He is not asking you to manufacture rest from your own depleted resources. He is offering you his rest, the rest that flows from his own unshakable peace, the rest that remained undisturbed in his heart, even as storms raged and crowds pressed, and the weight of the world's sin bore down upon him. This is the rest he invites you into, and more than invites, he is actively leading you into it, gently but persistently, with the unrelenting kindness of a shepherd who will not let his sheep perish from exhaustion. There is something profoundly beautiful about the green pastures where the shepherd makes you lie down. These are not barren fields of forced inactivity. They are lush, vibrant, life-giving places of nourishment. The shepherd does not make you lie down in a desert and call it rest. He leads you to pastures that are green, which means there is sustenance there, there is life there, there is something good to take in even as you are letting go of your striving. The Hebrew word for green in this context carries the sense of tender, young, fresh grass, the kind that is most nourishing and most appealing to the sheep. In other words, the shepherd is not only giving you a command to rest, he is providing an environment where rest feels good, where rest actually feeds something deep within your soul. As you lie there, you are not just ceasing from labor, you are receiving. You are absorbing the nutrients of his presence. You are being fed by his word. You are soaking in the healing balm of his spirit. The rest he gives is never empty. It is always restorative, always purposeful, always filled with his life-giving presence. And notice that the lying down comes before the leading beside still waters. This is the divine order that we so often try to reverse. We think if we can just get to the peaceful circumstances, if we can just arrange our lives so that everything is calm, then we will finally be able to rest. But the shepherd knows that internal rest must precede external peace, not the other way around. He makes you lie down first in the green pastures of his provision, and then he leads you to the still waters. The rest is the prerequisite for the guidance, not the reward for having followed perfectly. This is such a gracious truth. You do not have to have everything figured out before you can rest. You do not have to have solved all your problems before you can lie down. You can rest right now, in the middle of your unanswered questions, in the middle of your unresolved tensions, in the middle of your unfinished business, because your rest is not based on your circumstances, but on your shepherd's character. He is good. He is faithful. He is in control, and because of who he is, you can afford to be still. I want to speak a gentle word to those of you who have been in a season of prolonged resistance. Perhaps you know that the shepherd has been trying to make you lie down, but you have been fighting it. Maybe you have filled every quiet moment with noise because silence felt too threatening. Maybe you have kept yourself perpetually busy because stopping would mean facing some things you have been avoiding. Beloved, the shepherd is not trying to trap you into facing your pain in order to shame you. He wants to heal you. The green pastures are a place of restoration, not condemnation. When he makes you lie down, he is positioning you to receive the very thing you have been too busy to receive, the healing touch you have been too distracted to notice. Do not be afraid of the stillness. Do not be afraid of what might surface when the noise fades. The shepherd is right there with you, and his presence is more than sufficient for whatever you might find in the quiet. His rod and his staff, they comfort you even in this, especially in this. The rod that protects from external enemies is also the rod that gently disciplines the sheep who would wander into danger. And both functions are expressions of his perfect love. If he is making you lie down, it is because he is protecting you from something you cannot see. Perhaps from burnout so severe it would take years to recover from. Perhaps from decisions made in exhaustion that would have long-term consequences. Perhaps simply from the slow spiritual death that comes from never being still enough to know that he is God. Whatever the reason, you can trust his hand. You can trust his timing. You can trust his method. The shepherd makes you rest, even when you resist it, because he loves you with a love that will not let you destroy yourself. Let that love wash over you now. Let it melt the tension from your shoulders and the worry from your brow. The shepherd is here, and he is not leaving until you have found what he knows you desperately need. Surrender to the rest. Stop fighting the hands that are trying to heal you. The green pastures are beneath you even now, soft and sustaining, and the still waters are just ahead, waiting to reflect back to you the face of the one who has been holding you all along. Breathe in his peace, breathe out your resistance, and let the Good Shepherd do what he does best: restore your soul. Soul restoration happens in stillness, not striving. This is a truth so countercultural, so counterintuitive to everything our world teaches us, that it can only be fully grasped in the quiet place where the Spirit whispers. I want you to let that sentence hang in the air of your heart for a moment. Soul restoration happens in stillness, not striving, not in the frantic activity, not in the endless self-improvement projects, not in the religious performance that leaves you exhausted and wondering if you have done enough to earn God's favor, but in stillness, in the ceasing, in the surrender. In the quiet place where your hands finally stop reaching, and your heart finally stops racing, and your mind finally stops calculating, and you simply are, held in the presence of the one who formed you from the dust and breathed his own life into your lungs. This is the way of the shepherd, and it has always been the way, even though we have wandered so far from it that it now feels foreign and strange and almost uncomfortable to be still. Consider what David actually wrote in that magnificent psalm. He restores my soul. The Hebrew word for restore here is shuv, and it carries a richness of meaning that a single English word can barely contain. It means to turn back, to return, to bring back to the original state, to refresh, to repair, to revive. When the shepherd restores your soul, he is not merely giving you a momentary break from your exhaustion. He is doing something far more profound. He is returning you to your original design. He is bringing you back to the person you were created to be before the world got its hands on you, before the burdens piled up, before the disappointments accumulated, before the cynicism crept in and stole your wonder. He is repairing the fractures that you did not even know were there. The hairline cracks in your spirit caused by years of pushing through without pausing, years of saying yes when your soul was screaming no, years of performing for approval instead of resting in acceptance. This kind of restoration is not a surface-level refreshment. It is a deep, fundamental, transformative work that reaches into the very core of who you are and sets things right again. And the crucial thing, the absolutely essential thing that we must understand, is that this work happens in stillness. Why stillness? Why can this restoration not happen while we are running, while we are doing, while we are achieving? Because the nature of striving is fundamentally opposed to the nature of grace, and restoration is a work of grace from beginning to end. When you are striving, you are operating out of your own limited strength, your own finite wisdom, your own depleted resources. Your focus is on what you must do, what you must achieve, what you must prove. Your identity becomes wrapped up in your output, your value measured by your productivity. In that state, your soul is like a clenched fist, tight and defensive and closed off. The shepherd cannot restore a clenched fist. He can only restore an open hand. Stillness is the posture of the open hand. It is the physical, emotional, and spiritual act of unclenching, of releasing, of saying, I cannot do this on my own and I was never meant to. It is the recognition that you are not the restorer of your own soul, that you do not possess the resources within yourself to fix what is broken, to heal what is wounded, to revive what has grown cold. Only the shepherd can do that. Your job, your only job, is to be still long enough to let him work. I want to speak to the part of you that feels guilty about stillness. I know that voice because I have heard it myself, and I know it whispers to many of you in the quiet moments. It says you should be doing something. It says rest is laziness. It says stillness is unproductive, and unproductive is unacceptable. It says there are things on your to-do list, responsibilities that are waiting, people who need you, problems that need solving. That voice is not the voice of the shepherd. The shepherd leads you beside still waters for a reason. He knows that the still waters are where you can see your reflection clearly. He knows that the still waters are where you can drink deeply without fear of being swept away by the current. He knows that the still waters are where restoration happens. The voice of the shepherd says, "Come away with me and rest a while." The voice of the enemy says you cannot afford to stop. But the truth is, beloved, you cannot afford not to stop. The cost of constant striving is higher than you realize. It costs you your peace. It costs you your presence with the people you love. It costs you your ability to hear the gentle whisper of God. It costs you your very soul, piece by piece, until one day you look in the mirror and do not even recognize the tired, hollow-eyed person staring back at you. The shepherd sees that cost, and he loves you too much to let you keep paying it. There is a profound mystery in the way God designed us. We are not machines that simply need to be recharged like a battery plugged into a wall. We are living souls, complex and intricate, with layers of being that require different kinds of nourishment. Your body needs sleep, your mind needs quiet, your emotions need processing, your spirit needs communion with its creator. Striving addresses none of these needs. Striving only depletes them further. Stillness, on the other hand, creates the conditions in which all of these needs can be met simultaneously. In stillness, your body can relax and release the tension it has been holding. In stillness, your mind can stop its endless churning and finally find clarity. In stillness, your emotions can surface and be felt and be healed. And in stillness, your spirit can reach out and touch the hem of Jesus' garment and receive the restoration that only He can give. This is not passivity. This is not doing nothing. This is actively positioning yourself in the place of receiving. It is the most intentional thing you can do for your soul. I want you to think about the story of Elijah for a moment. Here was a prophet who had just experienced one of the greatest victories in the history of Israel, calling down fire from heaven on Mount Carmel, defeating the prophets of Baal in a spectacular display of God's power. And yet immediately after this triumph, we find him running for his life, collapsing under a broom tree in the wilderness and asking God to take his life. He was exhausted, depleted, burned out. He had given everything he had in the striving, and there was nothing left. And how did God restore his servant? Did he give him a new assignment? Did he tell him to get up and keep going? Did he rebuke him for his lack of faith? No. The angel of the Lord touched him and said, "Get up and eat." Then he lay down again. The angel touched him a second time and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." God's restoration plan for Elijah was sleep and food and more sleep and more food. It was physical rest in the presence of the divine. It was stillness. And it was only after this restoration that Elijah was able to hear the still small voice of God on the mountain. The great revelation, the great commissioning, the great clarity came after the stillness, not before it. The restoration of his soul happened while he was lying under that broom tree, too exhausted to even pray, too depleted to even hope. The shepherd met him there, in the stillness, and brought him back to life. This is what the shepherd wants to do for you right now, in this very moment. He wants to meet you in your exhaustion, whether that exhaustion is physical or emotional or spiritual, or all three at once. He wants to meet you in your burnout, in your disappointment, in your quiet desperation that you have been hiding from everyone else. He is not put off by your weakness. He is not disappointed by your depletion. He is drawn to it. The bruised reed he will not break, and the smoldering wick he will not snuff out. Your fragility is not a barrier to his restoration. It is the very thing that qualifies you for it. All he asks is that you stop striving long enough to let him near. All he asks is that you cease from your own labors and enter into his rest. This is the rest spoken of in Hebrews, the Sabbath rest, that remains for the people of God. It is not just a day of the week, it is a posture of the soul. It is a way of living. It is the continual, moment-by-moment reliance on the finished work of Christ rather than the frantic work of your own hands. And it is available to you right now, in this breath, in this pause, in this sacred stillness. Let me speak this over you with all the tenderness I can summon. You do not have to earn your restoration. You do not have to prove you deserve it. You do not have to figure out how to fix yourself and then present your fixed self to God. That is not how grace works. Grace meets you in the mess. Grace finds you under the broom tree. Grace sits with you in the stillness and does the work while you simply receive. The shepherd restores your soul. You do not restore it yourself. You cannot. You have tried, and you know how that ends. It ends in more exhaustion, more frustration, more cycles of determination followed by collapse. But the shepherd's restoration is different. It is gentle. It is patient. It is complete. It reaches into the places you have forgotten about. The wounds from years ago that you thought had healed, but actually just scabbed over. The disappointments you buried because you did not have time to process them. The grief you pushed aside because there was work to be done. The shepherd wants to go back to those places with you, not to make you relive the pain, but to bring true healing to places that have only known numbness. And he can only do this when you are still enough to let him. The still waters in Psalm 23 are called waters of rest. The Hebrew phrase is me menusho, waters of quietness, waters of repose. These are not rushing rapids that demand your constant vigilance. These are not turbulent seas that threaten to overwhelm you. These are still waters, calm and clear and safe. The shepherd leads you there because he knows that your soul cannot be restored in the rapids. It cannot be restored while you are fighting to keep your head above water. It can only be restored when you are led to a place where the water is calm, where you can see the bottom, where you can drink without fear. And notice that he leads you there. You do not have to find the still waters on your own. You do not have to figure out where they are or how to get there. The shepherd knows the way. He knows every still pool in every valley. He knows exactly where to take you. Your only responsibility is to follow, and following, in this context, means trusting him enough to stop running, to stop looking for your own solutions, to stop trying to calm the waters of your life through your own frantic efforts. It means letting him set the pace. It means letting him choose the path. It means surrendering your timeline and your agenda and your desperate need for control into the hands of the one who holds all things together. As you sit here in this moment, I want you to become aware of your own striving. Notice the tension in your body. Notice the racing thoughts in your mind. Notice the tightness in your chest that you have been carrying for so long it feels normal. That is striving. That is the opposite of stillness. And I want you to consciously, gently, and without condemnation release it. Breathe it out. Hand it over. Imagine yourself physically unclenching your hands and placing whatever you have been holding so tightly into the nail-scarred hands of Jesus. He can handle it. Whatever it is, he can handle it. Your finances, he can handle it. Your children, he can handle it. Your marriage, he can handle it. Your future, he can handle it. Your past, he can handle it. The thing you are most afraid of, he can handle it. You were never meant to carry it alone. You were never meant to carry it at all. Cast your cares on him because he cares for you. That is not a suggestion. That is an invitation to exchange your striving for his stillness, your anxiety for his peace, your depletion for his restoration. And in this stillness, something beautiful is beginning to happen. You may not feel it yet, but it has already started. The shepherd is at work. Your soul is being restored, not because you are striving, but because you have finally, blessedly, stopped. God's protection and peace are present right now, in the middle of your trouble. This is not a promise for some distant future when you have finally gotten your life together and arranged all your circumstances into perfect order. This is not a reward waiting for you on the other side of your current storm. This is the reality of your life in this very moment, whether your emotions have caught up to it yet or not. The shepherd does not wait until the wolves have been chased away to sit with his sheep. He sits with them in the very presence of the wolves. He does not wait until the storm has passed to offer his peace. He offers his peace while the wind is still howling and the rain is still lashing against the windows of your heart. This is the radical, counterintuitive, breathtaking truth of Psalm 23, and it is perhaps the most overlooked part of this beloved passage. David writes, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Not after the enemies have been defeated, not once the enemies have retreated, not when the enemies have been converted into friends. In the presence of my enemies. Right there, in the middle of the battlefield, with the threat still visible and the danger still real, the shepherd spreads a feast and invites his weary sheep to sit down and eat. I need you to understand how utterly audacious this is. In the natural world, a sheep does not eat when predators are near. A sheep does not relax when danger is circling. Every instinct in its body screams at it to flee, to hide, to remain on high alert until the threat has passed. Eating requires vulnerability. It requires the sheep to lower its head, to take its eyes off the horizon, to focus on the grass instead of the enemy. This is precisely why the shepherd must make the sheep lie down in green pastures, because left to its own fearful perceptions, the sheep would rather starve than risk the vulnerability of eating while danger lurks. And yet here is David, a shepherd himself, who understood the nature of sheep intimately, describing a scene of almost unbelievable calm, a table prepared, a feast spread out, and the enemies, still there, still present, still visible, but rendered powerless by the presence of the shepherd. This is your life right now, beloved. Your enemies may still be present. The diagnosis may still be on the paper. The conflict may still be unresolved. The financial pressure may still be weighing on your account. The prodigal may still be far from home. But in the middle of all of it, the shepherd has prepared a table for you. He has spread a feast of peace, of sustenance, of comfort, of joy, and he is inviting you to sit down and eat even while the enemies watch. What does it mean to eat at the table the shepherd has prepared in the presence of your enemies? It means to partake of his peace while your circumstances are still screaming for your attention. It means to nourish your soul on his faithfulness while your fears are still demanding to be heard. It means to taste and see that the Lord is good, not theoretically, not theologically, but actually, in the middle of your Tuesday afternoon when nothing seems to be going right. The table is not a metaphor for some abstract spiritual concept. It is a real invitation to a real experience of God's sustaining presence in the very teeth of your trouble. When you sit at that table, you are making a declaration. You are declaring that your shepherd is bigger than your enemies. You are declaring that his provision is more real than your problems. You are declaring that his peace is more powerful than your panic. And you are declaring that you will not wait for perfect circumstances to enjoy the feast of his presence. You will enjoy it now in the middle of the mess because the shepherd is with you, and his presence is the feast. Let me speak to the part of you that has been waiting for the trouble to end before you allow yourself to experience peace. I understand that impulse. It feels logical. It feels prudent. It feels like the responsible thing to do. How can I be at peace when this thing is still unresolved? How can I rest when this threat is still looming? How can I celebrate when this grief is still so fresh? Those are honest questions, and the shepherd does not rebuke you for asking them. But he does invite you to a different way of seeing. He invites you to understand that his peace is not dependent on the absence of conflict. His peace is a person. Jesus himself is our peace. And because he is always with you, peace is always with you, even when your feelings have not yet aligned with that reality. The peace of God, Paul writes, surpasses all understanding. It does not make sense to the natural mind. It cannot be explained by circumstances. It is a peace that exists independently of what is happening around you, because it is rooted in who is happening within you. Christ in you, the hope of glory. That is the source of your peace. And Christ is not frightened by your enemies. Christ is not intimidated by your diagnosis. Christ is not confused by your situation. He is seated at the right hand of the Father, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion. And he has prepared a table for you right there in the heavenly realms, even while your earthly circumstances are still in turmoil. The table prepared in the presence of enemies is also a table of vindication. In the ancient Near Eastern culture, to prepare a table for someone in the presence of their enemies was a public declaration of honor and protection. It was the host saying to all who watched, "This person is under my care, and anyone who would harm them must first go through me." When the shepherd prepares a table for you in the presence of your enemies, he is making a statement to every force of darkness that has arrayed itself against you. He is saying to fear, "You cannot have this one." He is saying to anxiety, "This soul belongs to me." He is saying to shame, "Your accusations are overruled." He is saying to the enemy of your soul, "You may roar and you may threaten, but you cannot touch the one who sits at my table." This is the protection of the shepherd, and it is absolute. Not because you are strong, but because he is. Not because you have earned it, but because he has declared it. Not because your enemies have given up, but because they have been rendered impotent by the presence of the one who walks with you through the valley. I want you to consider the valley for a moment, because the valley is where this table is so often set. David writes, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." The valley is not a detour from the path of righteousness. It is part of the path. The shepherd does not always lead his sheep around the valley. Sometimes he leads them through it. But the crucial thing, the thing that changes everything, is that he does not send them through the valley alone. You are with me. That is the difference between terror and peace. That is the difference between despair and hope. That is the difference between being destroyed by your trouble and being refined by it. The presence of the shepherd in the valley transforms the valley from a place of death into a place of deep, intimate communion. It is in the valley that we learn to trust him in ways we never would have learned on the mountaintop. It is in the valley that we discover the depths of his faithfulness. It is in the valley that we experience the table prepared in the presence of enemies, not as a lovely poetic image, but as a tangible, life-sustaining reality. And what is on this table? What has the shepherd prepared for you to feast upon in the middle of your trouble? There is his presence, which is the bread of life itself. There is his word, which is sweeter than honey and more nourishing than any food the world can offer. There is his comfort, which soothes the raw edges of your pain. There is his wisdom, which brings clarity when confusion has fogged your mind. There is his strength, which fills you when your own strength has long since run out. There is his joy, a deep and unshakable joy that is not dependent on happy circumstances, but is rooted in the unchanging reality of his love for you. And there is his anointing, the oil that he pours over your head, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the oil of the Holy Spirit who ministers to you in ways that go beyond words. Your cup overflows, David writes. It overflows not because the enemies have vanished, but because the shepherd's provision is so abundant that even in their presence there is more than enough. More than enough grace, more than enough mercy, more than enough peace, more than enough love. Your enemies may be present, but they are not seated at the table. This is a crucial distinction. The enemies can watch, but they cannot partake. They can threaten, but they cannot touch the feast that has been prepared for you. They can rage, but they cannot steal the peace that the shepherd has set before you. The table is for you and for the shepherd alone. It is a place of intimacy, a place of fellowship, a place of communion that is sacred and protected and inviolable. When you sit at that table, you are in the secret place of the Most High, the place that the psalmist describes as the shelter where you abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And in that secret place, no evil can befall you, no plague can come near your dwelling, no weapon formed against you can prosper. Not because the weapons are not formed, but because you are hidden. You are seated at the table. You are under the shepherd's direct protection. And the shepherd, let me remind you, is the one who laid down his life for his sheep. If he was willing to die for you, do you think he will let anything snatch you from his hand now? The cross is the ultimate table prepared in the presence of enemies. On that dark day, when the forces of darkness thought they had won their greatest victory, Jesus was preparing a feast of salvation that would undo every claim the enemy ever had against you. And now, risen and reigning, he continues to prepare that table for you every single day, right in the middle of whatever battle you are facing. So I want you to take a moment right now to name your enemies. Not to dwell on them, not to give them more power, but to bring them into the light of the shepherd's presence. What is threatening you today? What is stealing your peace? What is keeping you awake at night? What is whispering lies into your ear? Name it silently before the Lord. Acknowledge its presence. Do not pretend it is not there, because the shepherd does not pretend. He knows your enemies better than you do. And now, with your enemies named, I want you to see the table. See the shepherd, right there with you, spreading a cloth, setting out bread and wine, pouring oil, filling your cup until it spills over the edges. He is not in a hurry. He is not panicking. He is not glancing nervously at the enemies that surround you. He is looking at you with eyes full of love, and he is saying, sit, eat, rest, I am with you. And because I am with you, you are safe. Not safe because the danger is imaginary, but safe because the danger is irrelevant in the light of my presence. The enemies are real, but the shepherd is more real. The trouble is present, but the peace is present too. And the peace is deeper. The peace is stronger. The peace will outlast the trouble. The peace will still be standing when the trouble has faded into a distant memory. So sit at the table, beloved. The feast is ready. The shepherd is waiting. And nothing in all creation can separate you from his love that is being poured out for you right now, in this very moment. In the presence of whatever has been troubling you,